Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I think we're still getting people admitted to the waiting room, but I'm going to go ahead and kick this off so that we can get started and everyone can get back to their normal schedules here. Today we have Colleen Dean Miller, who is one of our alumni. She was an accounting grad. With us today, she is currently the Senior Vice President and Manager for the Fund Treasurer's Office in New York. The New York office, at PIMCO. And I am going to go ahead and turn it over to her in just a minute so she can tell you a little bit more about her background and give you some tips and advice on your career. But after she is finished with her portion of the presentation, we are going to have a time for questions. And I would ask that if you do have any questions, you click on that participants link at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And under the participants, you should see the raise hand feature. And so we're gonna use that to kind of moderate the question session. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great Thursday. I'm so excited to be here. I was surprised by the Acts and Alumni segment, but I was ecstatic that I have the opportunity to talk to you all. I love FSU so much. I grew up at FSU. I was there from 1998 to 2002. Very fun years. Our football team was doing great. Our university was flourishing. A lot of money was coming into the university. And we had just opened, I think it was Rivetta, and that's where College of Business had the second building. And I just remember the new computers that were set up in that building. And so I have really great memories of being at Florida State and being in the College of Business. So I was so happy when I was asked to come back. I love FSU so much. I'm also on the FSU Alumni Board. I sit on the Audit and Finance Committee. We have a DEI committee. I'm also on the Board Development Committee and Governance Committee. So I am very engaged in our FSU alumni as well. So as you heard earlier, I work at a firm called PIMCO. I don't know if you guys know PIMCO, but PIMCO is an active manager that's responsible for finding ways to invest client assets in the fixed income market. Some would say, oh, you work on Wall Street. Yes, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Also, PIMCO has been around for 50 years. PIMCO is headquarters located in Newport Beach, California. We also have an office in New York City, and we just recently opened an office in Austin, Texas. A lot of our hiring is happening in Austin, Texas. So if you're interested in PIMCO, please go on our website. We have a lot of opportunities, and we would love to talk about a career at PIMCO with you. So what do I do at PIMCO? So I focus on 40 Act mutual funds. They are pooled investment vehicles, and they're registered vehicles under the 1940 Act, which is regulated by the SEC. I am focused on closed-end funds. These are mutual funds that are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. My primary job is to keep us out of trouble. I am a deputy treasurer now. That's equivalent to a deputy CFO. So I am still working under my major accounting. And I did do some minor courses at FSU and College of Business in finance, and that's what sparked my interest in investing and Wall Street. But overall, my job is to keep us out of trouble. I work very closely with auditors, investment professionals, third-party service providers, and I am responsible for reporting to the board of trustees that represent shareholders that are in 40 Act funds. A lot of our investors in 40 Act funds are companies that have 401ks, and they come to PIMCO and say, we want you to invest our employee money. And so my job is to make sure that we are putting safeguards and governance around that money that shareholders are giving to PIMCO. So I'll stop there for a second. You guys could think about that. And then I want to go into my history and background and how I got to being a deputy treasurer. It's interesting because some people would say, "Oh, Colleen, she's a closed-end fund expert," and we'll touch on that later in the presentation. But as I mentioned earlier, I graduated from Florida State in 2002, BS of accounting. I did not go the traditional route of going to an audit firm. I didn't do well in those interviews because I didn't know if I wanted to go directly to working for a PwC, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, etc. So after I graduated from Florida State, I went back home to South Florida. I'm originally from Hollywood, Florida. And I started working for Franklin Templeton Investments. And they did exactly what I just described, PIMCO. They're actually a competitor of PIMCO. And so that's where I got my start in 2002. After I graduated, I went and looked in the newspaper for a job. There was a job to strike NAV. That was like the description of the job. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. But I do know from my finance class, mutual funds are, they invest in diverse portfolios. And that's all I knew, because that's all we talked about in class. So I got a job there. I was there. And then I realized that, you know what? I want to move to New York City. But one thing I did realize is that in order for me to move to New York City, I needed to have either more work experience or an MBA to be competitive in that market. But at that time, I was in South Florida, and moving back to Tallahassee to me was not an option at the moment. We didn't have online courses, but Nova Southeastern had a executive MBA for individuals that were working. So I did the weekend executive MBA program, got my MBA, and I went exploring. I flew myself up to New York City, got a recruiter, and then I found a job at Cohen & Steers. And I'll talk about allyship in a minute, but my boss from Franklin Templeton knew the guy that was interviewing at Cohen & Steers, and they spoke, and I got the job at Cohen & Steers. So I moved to New York City in 2006. I'm still living in New York City 14 years later, but I worked at Cohen & Steers. Again, Cohen & Steers was a mutual fund shop focused on investing clients' assets, and it was fun. It was a smaller firm compared to Franklin Templeton. It gave me the opportunity to work closely with a small group of people, and that built my knowledge base, which I think is very important, building your skills and knowledge. After being there for 6 years or so, I got a phone call from PIMCO. They saw my profile on LinkedIn. Back in 2013, LinkedIn was fairly new, and I was shocked when I got that call. So I got this call. Someone saw my LinkedIn profile, and they said, "We want you to come to PIMCO." And I've been at PIMCO ever since. I am going on 8 years next year. And so it's been a really cool journey because I was able to work at 3 great firms, and I was very focused on building my expertise. So going from Franklin Templeton to Cohen & Steers and now PIMCO, my goal was to build my expertise. But one advice I was given was, once you're in your job for 5 years or that career for 5 years, you have to make a decision if you want to stick to it or if you want to try something new. And the reason why is you're building your knowledge base in one area, and also you are getting paid a certain amount, and you're getting paid for that expertise. And if you go past 5 years and you decide to switch industries or change your job, you cannot expect the same compensation because you're new to that industry or that role. So that's something for everyone to think about. So that's my background on who I am and my career path and my history. But the topic for today is advice on finding success in business. And Chelsea, if you could pull up the slide, the second slide, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. So if your goal is to be successful in business, then you will. I'm a strong believer in that. I also believe that hard work do pay off, but here are some additional information I wish someone would have shared with me while I was at FSU or my first 2 years working in the asset management industry, as we call it. So these are my 4 A's that I want to share with you. Authenticity, allyship, being an ambassador, and advisory. And it's so important that we all network with each other and share our personal experiences so that we could be more informed when we're thinking about ourselves and what we need to do to find success. So authenticity, be yourself. I always feel like it's important to be myself. Why? Because if I'm not myself, I can't bring, I can't bring professionalism. I can't bring my good ideas. I can't bring my confidence if I'm not myself. And people in the business world now are looking for diverse thoughts and ideas. They believe that diverse thoughts and ideas bring about good business decisions. So if we're not authentic and we're not bringing our true selves to work, it's hard for companies to benefit from you playing your role at the firm. So I would say, be yourself. Be aware of business etiquette. Be professional. I remember someone talking about code switching, right? So you're like, oh, well, I want to be authentic. I want to be myself, but I feel like I have to code switch. And there is this really good Harvard Business School article that talks about the cost of code switching and the fact that there are moments that you need to be professional. You need to have business etiquette, but that's not necessarily code switching. So I'll send the link to Chelsea and she can share with you, but I thought it was a really good article to help people understand that authenticity is important, but you don't have to be someone else. And when I say bring yourself to work, it's you should be honest, right? You don't want to be the person that pretending you're someone else when you're at work. And then you have to keep up with being that other person. So be honest, and that will help with your confidence. And that will help show people why you're unique and why you bring diversity and why it's important for you to be there. And finally, around authenticity is like, put yourself out there, trust your knowledge, execute your core responsibilities, and keep your head down and learn that job. So I believe that if you're authentic, that will bring about success in your day-to-day work life. The next one is allyship, building relationships. So I learned this later on in my career that building allyship with others that do not look like you is also okay. You're there to find success, and these individuals can help you with your career. Because I know you guys have heard of the term, have a seat at the table. Well, not every one of us will have that seat at the table on the onset of our careers. We have to build our careers to get to that point, to get that seat. And so there are other people that do have that seat that don't look like you. If you look at the landscape of corporate America now, it's quite obvious that it is more male dominated. And some would say, depending on where you are in the US, and I will speak specifically to New York City, it's a white male dominated industry. Wall Street. And so if you know that it's white, male dominated, they could be your ally. They could help you. So I'll give you an example of my situation. I was doing a women roundtable a month or two ago, and someone asked me, how did you find success? And at that moment, I stopped and said, haha, allyship. I realized that white males were my sponsors over the years. Remember that example about how I got my job at Cohen & Steers and how I moved from Florida to New York? It was two white males having that conversation about my career. And because I was a hardworking person and I was myself, I was able to get that recommendation to go work in New York City. Allyship is important. We should see those relationships as ways for us to find success in business. The third of the 4 A's that I want to touch on is ambassador, your personal brand. It is so important that if you want to be successful, to build a network. You should be able to reach out to people that you work with. You should be able to reach out to more senior people. And you should be able to reach out to people that are, at least once you're 2 years into your career, people that are just coming into their careers. So it's so important to build that network so you have different types of people around you, so that you have ears out there and people could share business opportunities. They could share their experiences with you, and you could share your experiences with them, and over time become a mentor or a sponsor. And we'll talk about that under advisory. The other thing is you should build relationships outside of your team and your department. And you should also think about joining employee resource groups. By joining these employee research groups, you can meet other people. It's equivalent to you joining other organizations within FSU, College of Business. I joined Delta Sigma Pi when I was at Florida State in College of Business, and that network was amazing. I'm still friends with a lot of those people that I met within that network because I'm at a really big university. My major was in the College of Business. I decided to join that organization. So that's equivalent to an employee resource group. You join in a group of people where you could get to know them, build networks, and you never know. You might come back later on in the career and they might be the one that's hiring, or they might be the person that know of other opportunities, or you might need that person's reference for a job. So I think it's important to join employee resource groups. The other thing I would say about personal brand is being a well-rounded person. Make sure you continue your hobbies. When you leave college, don't stop there. Continue with your hobbies. My hobbies, I can share my hobbies with you guys. I like to travel all over the world. Well, right now we can't really travel, but I love sports. I went to Florida State. Of course, I love football. I love sports. After I left college, I started learning about wine. Every February, I usually go to Napa and Sonoma and do wine tasting and learn more about wine. Also, I just remember back in the days when golf was a big thing in college. You said, you need to learn how to play golf. Yeah, I learned a little bit about golf, but I'm not good at it. But I know the sport. Be a well-rounded person. Why? Because they're great conversation starters. You will find that you have something in common with people when you join those ERG groups. It's so important, right? Because there are different types of people. You have people that are introverts and you have people that are extroverts. And of which those extroverts are A-type personalities. So you have all these different types of personalities and people that you have to work with day to day. I know that at PIMCO, we're all A-type personalities. I'm one of those people. But I also know I have colleagues that are more introverted. And I know in order to get anything out of my introverted colleagues, I have to have great conversation starters to even get them to show that personality to speak. And so I think having my hobbies and using those as my conversation starters have enabled me to build those relationships with those people. And I'm able to build my personal brand because now people look at me and say, oh, she's really nice. She's social. She reaches out, she extends an olive branch, however. But people look at me as a person that is willing to compromise, collaborate, and work closely with all different types of people. The other thing around conversation starters, and I just remember back in the days when people used to say, oh, talk about the weather. Like, really, talk about the weather. That is such a good, that's a good way to start a conversation. Or talk about things that funny stories you've seen in the news or family. People are have families at home. Talk about what you're focused on at work. People like to talk about themselves. So just talk to them. But I will give you this advice. At least remember something from those conversations. Because if you talk to a person like me, I remember a lot from conversations. And so I'll bring it up again. And when people look at me like they don't know what I'm talking about, it drives me crazy. One of my pet peeves. So I would say, if you have conversation starters, if you talk to people, just kind of remember something. Just have a genuine interest in getting to know people, because people remember that, and that could ruin your personal brand. The last two is very specific to your actual job itself. Or I would say solicit feedback. There are different types of managers that you work with. There are managers that are very open and they will provide you with feedback and they will help you develop and grow your career. But there are some managers that they won't do it. So I believe that you should solicit feedback. That is a really great way for finding success. Because if someone could provide you with some, critical feedback, that could be a make or breaker in how people view your personal brand and how you find success. And finally, under being your own ambassador is, develop your skills. Focus on skills development. Focus on those opportunities and figure out ways to become an expert. Remember earlier when I said, people say Colleen's an expert. It's interesting because I was in a meeting and one of my colleagues said, hey, we need to talk to Colleen more. She's an expert in closed-end funds. That comment that my coworker made was very influential. And since then, I get a lot of people reaching out because they are like, oh, Colleen's an expert in her area. So by developing your skill set and being great at what you do, that could help your personal brand, and that could create success in your career and in your current role. So that's the third A. Finally, the fourth A is advisory. Build your tribe. What do I mean by that? It is important for you to have people around you that are helping you be successful. And I know you guys have heard of these terms, so I'll go through them and I'll give you an example of each. The first one is find a mentor. Mentor, what do you mean? You need a person that can help you be more self-aware, that can help you work on a work-life balance, and that you could talk to about your wins and your disappointments. You want to have that person that you could just talk about anything, and they're there to give you advice, and then they're there to help you be more self-aware. Because self-awareness is so key in being successful. Next, a peer coach. A peer coach, what is that? This person is the same person that's on the same level. This person is on the same level as you. So in my case, I'm a senior vice president. My peer would be a senior vice president. But that person is there to support me, and I'm there to support that person. And I'm there to elevate that person. And I'm there to provide feedback to that person. So I'll give you an example. If my peer coach and I are in the same meeting, we'll prep for the meeting prior. And when we're in that meeting, and sometimes we're the only women in that meeting, and sometimes we're the only people of color in that meeting, however you want to put it, we'll make sure that if I have a talking point and I say something, my peer coach is there to say, great point, Colleen. That's excellent. What a good idea. They're there to help elevate me in that meeting so others could turn and look and say, okay, we didn't look at it that way. Or they're there to say, hey, did we give Colleen an opportunity to speak? I think she might have some good points to share. So it's good to have a peer coach because that's helpful. Finally, sponsorship. Find a sponsor and value that sponsorship. This person can help you with stretch assignments, push you out of your comfort zone. This person could provide, put your name out there. Remember that whole concept around seat at the table? This sponsor is a more senior person than you. And that person is there to help you with career advice and to help you and to put your name in the hat for certain opportunities. So you have to value that sponsorship and get to know your sponsors so they have a great idea of what how authentic you are, what your personal brand is like, what your skill set is, and so that they can put your name out there to help you be put in a situation where you can find some success and maybe get a promotion or a new role. Or maybe they're there to just keep telling someone that you're an expert at what you do. And so more and more people have their radars out and they're looking for you when there's certain opportunities that are out there that fit your expertise. So I'll pause there. We're at 11:30, so I think I think I'm doing good on timing.
Hey, thank you so much. So do we have any questions? And again, as a reminder, if you could please go to the participants tab at the bottom and raise your hand there so that I can unmute you or ask you to unmute and we can get your question. Hey, Chloe, if you want to go ahead, you'll need to unmute yourself. I just asked you to unmute. There you go.
Hi, Colleen. I'm taking this on my phone, so don't judge me. But I really like these tips that you've been, giving today. I really have never heard of some of the things that you were talking about, like not only making connections, but making meaningful connections. And I really appreciate that you brought that up because as we are going through college and looking for these new opportunities, connections can really make or break an opportunity. I was wondering, how did you decide on your first job out of college? That's something I'm currently struggling on. So I wanted to see your tips and how you made that decision.
Oops, I believe you're muted. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry. Chloe, thank you for your remarks and no judgment on using various devices. I was saying my iMac was freezing, so I'm on an iPad speaking with you guys today. But I appreciate that question. It's interesting, when I was at Florida State, I really didn't know what I wanted to do from a career perspective. I actually came to Florida State for sports medicine. Then I switched to wanting to be a merchant. I think that was a different school. And then I decided to switch to the College of Business because I wanted to be more professional. I wanted to wear a suit every day, but I didn't know what areas I wanted to focus on. So I actually went to the Career Center. I think it was in Ravenna, but I went to the Career Center and I did this thing. They give you a test to figure out what you're great at. Are you detail oriented? Are you this? And so I ended up focusing on accounting. But one thing I did realize is that I didn't know what I wanted to do in accounting. So I started having conversations with others. I did some research on different roles, what kind of jobs. And I also started looking at industries. So for me, I ended up taking up some investment classes. So I took some finance classes. I think I'm actually one class away from a minor in finance. And then I also went to the College of Education and took a minor in education. The reason why I did that was I wanted to make sure that in case I end up wanting to be a professor, I had some educational background. I took investment class in case I wanted to work on Wall Street and do more financing. But as far as getting a job, back in 2002, it was right after 9/11. It was a different time. And I definitely know I did not want to work the long hours in audit firms, and people scared me about going to an audit firm. So I knew I wanted to do something more investing, but at the time, my little brother was just born. He's actually a junior at Florida State this year. And I wanted to be with him. So I came home and I just picked up the newspaper and started looking for investment jobs to say, I'm going to take a crack at it. I want to focus more on investment. So my advice to you, Chloe, is think about what you love to do, what industry, and how you can utilize your business degree. Just know business is important in all industries. And it's okay, like when you leave college, to get a job and decide that's not for you and you switch to something else. It's nothing wrong with trying something. And without trying, you don't know if you like it or not, but you're young and you have opportunities. I think now you could switch jobs after 2 to 3 years, where back when I was an undergrad, I was told that you have to stick to a job for 5 years. And the other thing is, there's so many apps and you have the internet at your exposure and you have a network. If there are other alums you could talk to that are in current industries that you're interested in, I think that would be another way to kind of figuring out whether or not that's an area that you want to focus on or an industry that you want to enter. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just want to say, like, I wish you were in college right now because you're so resourceful. I'm like, I definitely want to have you like in my little pocket, like, what should I do? So I definitely wish you were a peer mentor, but thank you so much for your advice.
No problem. I'm on LinkedIn, so.
Oh, I'll add you. Don't worry.
I get people reach out and ask questions on LinkedIn all the time. So I'll be more than happy to answer questions. And also, if I'm not mistaken, there are people, on LinkedIn, you could look at FSU alumni and an industry, and I think you could either send them emails or try to link up. Maybe that's what LinkedIn is for. I don't know how they came up with their name. And to be able to ask questions. I just think we're in the technology nowadays is so great and powerful that we should just embrace it and take advantage.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please raise your hand, or if you do prefer, you can type it into the chat and I will try and monitor that as well so that we can have the questions there. Okay, so here next, we have Mohammed Khalik.
Yes, ma'am. How you doing, Miss Colleen? I just had a quick question. Do you guys deal with a lot of foreign investors?
Oh, yeah. So we do. At PIMCO, we are a global firm. And so we are in EMEA, meaning Europe, Africa, the Middle East. We're also in Asia. We call it APAC. We're in Asia, Australia. We're also in Japan. We have an office in Hong Kong. And so we are global from office perspective for client purposes. But as far as what we have in portfolios, yeah, we do have exposure in various currencies within the portfolios, because if you think about it, we have different types of asset classes and asset allocation. And the goal is to invest client money and to make sure that the portfolio is diverse, right? Depending on the fund, we have investment objectives, and we have to adhere to that. And some of its investment objectives are focused on foreign investments. And so then we do have an allocation in that. And the allocation could vary, could be 2% up to 25%, depending on the actual mutual fund itself. If you want to learn more about investing, I would suggest you go on to our website, and under our resources, education, there are a lot of educational materials on PIMCO investing, our different allocations, the different types of bond that we invest in, all types of materials that would be helpful to enhance your knowledge.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. So another question, what are the initial steps of finding a mentor? How do I ask somebody to be my mentor? And I will let you answer that, but then we also have a mentorship program at the college. So that is another option to consider.
Oh, yeah. So mentoring. So I feel like they're very informal. So you could just ask someone to be a mentor. And it could be from a social networking event at work, and you got an opportunity to talk to someone more senior than you, and you realize you had some stuff in common, or you just have a good rapport with that individual from that conversation. You could have follow-up coffees, or now virtual coffees, with the individual, just to get to know them a little bit more and to see if your personalities are compatible. Then you could say, hi, do you mind being my mentor? That's how I've done it over the years. Because, when you think about it, you want to be able to have conversations with that mentor. You want that mentor to be honest with you. And so in order for that to work really well, you have to like each other and be able to be in a room with each other and be able to talk to each other and feel like you're getting sound advice and you appreciate it. Not everyone could take criticism too. And so if you're putting your time into building these mentor relationships, you have to make sure that you're comfortable in them, right? And also I would say, and I think Marissa will talk more about it, you could practice being a mentor yourself in school, so then you have the tools to determine whether or not you want someone else to mentor you. So I mean, those are my thoughts around mentorship. They're so informal. And I meant to say this earlier, and I'll say this now. You should read books. I think it's important to read business books. You get a better understanding of various views. I remember a few years ago, Lean In was like one of the top books that everyone was reading. And I'll say, read that book. And then you could decide, do you want to lean in or lean out, right? Like, does it make sense? Do you agree with the author's viewpoint? Or do you not? I think there's so many books too on mentorship. What does it mean? I was reading a book the other day on sponsorship and how it's different from mentorship and how a mentor could turn into a sponsor. So my advice is also to read books and read articles. I mentioned Harvard Business School article. I wanted to be Florida State Business School article, right? Like, I'm like, man, I need to start writing articles. So maybe I could publish my 4 A's. But my point is that there are a lot of publications out there that we could easily go online and look up. It's very informative. And they have mentorship checklists. So you could go down the list and say, is this person this? Check. Is this person that? No. And then you look at it and say, yeah, that's a mentor. I'm going to ask. Or no, let me keep looking. And so hopefully that answers the question.
Great. I agree. It's very important to have mentors. So in your current position, do you use more of your finance background or accounting background or a mix of both?
Oh, yeah. I use both. Accounting is, we all know, backbone. Like you need to understand accounting. Because my title is deputy treasurer, I use a lot of my accounting. Because I'm in the asset management industry, my finance background is very important. because I'm in lots of meetings and they'll start talking about investing. And it's like, okay, I need to understand what we're trying to invest and make sure we can account for it correctly in our books and records. So that's that correlation. I'll give you an example. We talk about expenses. I'll make it easy. So we were talking about an investment and they say, Colleen, we want to invest in this business. There's going to be some expenses. How are we going to allocate the expenses that we incur for launching this business? So he's like, okay, I need to understand what the business is. I need to understand the investment. I need to understand how it's valued. And then based on that, I will determine the expense allocation, right? So I have to understand both sides in order to do my job and do it well. I don't know what the finance curriculum looked like at Florida State, but I'll say this to you guys. You all are lucky. When I was at Florida State, we did not have Bloomberg terminals. And I am on a Bloomberg terminal a lot in my day-to-day job. Bloomberg is a monopoly in our industry, and we use Bloomberg. Now we're paying Bloomberg to pull back information. So take advantage of your resources in the College of Business. If you are a finance major, get to know Bloomberg. He was the mayor of New York City too, so that was kind of cool. I didn't even know that connection until I moved to New York, like, So you guys have resources, take advantage. But I do use both.
Great. So Kelly asked, was there a time you messed up and felt like you'd failed? And how did you bounce back, if so?
Oh, I'm my worst critic. We're all our worst critic. I mean, I could talk about yesterday, the day before that. I'm my worst critic. I mess up all the time, but I'm self-aware. But there are different types of messing up, right? So there is did I mess up? So I'll say, how did I perform in a meeting is one thing I think about. Another thing is, how did I engage with an individual? Did that conversation go well? Like, those are the things that I think about when I'm like, oh, I messed up. Now, as far as like actual work, yeah, did I provide bad advice and it caused an error in our account? Like, there's so many different ways of how I look at messing up. But this is the one thing I will say about that. You should be at a firm where when you do mess up, it is okay because you learn from mistakes. You need to be at a firm where you have a manager that has your back. So when you do mess up, it is that conversation around, yeah, you messed up. Yeah, that's what you did. How do we make it better, right? So I am my worst critic, and that is that's how I get through and get past my mess up is, yeah, I messed up, but what did I do right? What could I have done better? How do I fix it? Lessons learned. If it's something tactical or work related, do I need to update my processes and procedures because nothing goes well? Is this, should I have looked at it from a phase approach? Phase 1, we do good. Phase 2, we do better. Phase 3, we're doing great. So I would say this: it's great to be your worst critic. Don't beat yourself up. You're human. But it goes back to your advisory, right? Talk to a mentor about it. Talk to your peer coach about it. Talk to your sponsor and say, hey, I messed up. How do I make it better? Now, I will also say this. You can't mess up every day. You can't use it as a crutch. You can't use it, as an excuse. I mean, the topic here is how to find success in business. You have to be very focused. You have to bring your authentic self to work, and you have to take criticism, because without doing that, you're going to keep making that same mistake, and it doesn't sit well when your company is trying to conduct business, right? But I've had some I've made some big mistakes in my career. 18 years in. I have. And some of them I look back now and I can laugh about them. Seriously, like, haha, that's funny. How did I do that? But it goes back to the fact that I just have great people around me and they were able to still push me along. And I think you all could be in the same position I am in 18 years from now. You're at a great university. You're at events such as this, talking to people such as myself that could share moments. But I think I have too many examples. I don't even think we have enough time, but hopefully that answers that question.
That was great. Thank you so much for the advice. So we're going to bounce back to the mentoring a little bit. Khalil asked, or said you talked a little bit about the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, and he wanted to know if you could elaborate on that a bit more.
Okay, sure. So I'll start with sponsor, but like I mentioned earlier, for mentoring, it's not formal, it's informal. It's you are picking that person. It could, you saw that person across the room and felt, man, this person could be helpful. I feel comfortable talking to that person. But I think a sponsor, it's like they are sponsoring you for a job, right? They are there. They have a seat at the table. So when I say seat at the table, they're in a room where there's a group of people making decisions on staff, on upcoming projects, on promotion. So if you have a senior person at the firm that is working closely with you, they've gotten to know you, they've given you assignments here and there, they could vouch for your work, they are considered your sponsors. So they'll go into that room, and if they're saying there's a project coming up, your sponsor could say, hey, Colleen, she's been doing great. I gave her a few assignments. She did a great job. We've been speaking a lot. She's a great worker. She's well-grounded. She's self-aware. Her brand is great. That sponsor is there to elevate you and help others understand your worth. Depending on the size of your firm, the sponsorship might be a make or break for having a successful career. If you're at a big firm like a big bank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Chase, those are big companies. And you're like the fish out of water. You need someone that's there, that's been there for years or had this experience to be able to bring your name up, mention your name, because they're always asking in those rooms, do you know of anyone that would be good at X? And that sponsor could say, oh, you know what? I actually do. And so I think that's the difference between sponsorship and mentor, is that sponsor could help you get a job, help you with getting assigned to projects, help you get promoted because they're vouching for you. And so that's why I say value the sponsorship, because that's a big deal. If this person's your sponsor, you have to make it a point to meet with them, give them updates on what you've been doing at work. Just keep them apprised of what you're doing so that when it's time for them to put your name up, they have all these talkers. So always remember that. Where a mentor is just, it's very informal. It's just, you're just talking to this person. You want to vent. You don't want to talk to your manager. You may not want to talk to your peer coach. You just want this person to be there to give you those advice, and it's just between you and that person, right? And so, look, everyone's going to have work friends, but do you really want to talk to your work friend about your work? Like, you have work friends that you hang out with at networking events, or you go to lunch together, or you guys hang out after work. But your work friend might be your competitor, right? They might be in your department, and you guys might be up for the same role one day. So you want to basically separate your different types of friendships that you have at work. So hopefully that helps clarify the two.
Yes, thank you. So Carla wants to know, what is the best advice you can give someone on how to know when it is time to move positions? Should you immediately start looking after the 2 to 3 year time limit or to advance? Or what if you are just not sure if you should stay at your current job?
That's a good question. I will say this: know your worth and your value. So if you're working and you're working really hard and you feel like you're not getting the recognition that you deserve, then I think you should find a firm. Don't stay. Find another firm where they value your skill set, your knowledge, you as a person. If you can't bring your authentic self to work, you should figure out whether or not this job is for you. It's like this, it's like a checklist. I hate the word checklist. I tell people all the time, but I feel like we need a checklist. But it's how you feel as an individual. Like, so you go to work, can you bring your authentic self to work? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like your voice is being heard? Do you feel like you understand what your job is? Do you feel like your manager is providing you with good feedback? Do you feel like you have people that that are around you that you could talk to, that will help you at work? Do you feel like you're being challenged? Do you go to work every day wishing you're not there? Like, oh, why am I here? Like, those are some of those pointers, at least I've thought about it in my past, where I'm like, I think it's time to move on. Now, the other side of it is another company might call and say, hey, we saw your resume, and we think that we have a great opportunity and we want to talk to you about it. I tell everyone, it doesn't hurt. Companies aren't loyal to you as you are to them, right? It's a company. And that's the thing. So I always feel like around 2-3 years in, people might start getting those phone calls. Check it out. It's your career. See if that other opportunity makes sense. But I'll say this: don't jump for like $5,000 or $10,000. Like, don't jump for small incremental increases in salary, because just remember, you're going to leave this job and you have to go to the next job, and then it takes at least a year or two to learn that job. And so you're just jumping for incremental. Like, when you think about it, 5,000 over 12 months, over every 2 weeks, it might just be, with taxes being taken out, it might just be $30 extra. If that, a paycheck, yeah, like, is it even worth it? So I would say, like, don't jump for small incremental increases. I would say stay at a firm where you understand that role and job and you feel like you've developed this skill set. Pay attention to the market. And if you see that your skill set is in high demand and someone's calling, take those calls. But I mean, don't take it from me. I was in my first job for 5 years. I was in my second job for 7. And now in my third job for 8 years almost. So that's my 18 years. So this is my third job. I have not moved. And one of those reasons why I have not moved is because I feel like I'm being challenged. I feel like I have a really good network at work. I also feel sometimes scared to change. Because I'm like, do I really want to like get to know new people? Do I really want to change my routine? So it's somewhat also personal. And every individual on this Zoom is different and value stability. But there's one book I think everyone should read. And I don't know if they still recommend this book, but that book is Who Moved My Cheese? That is like my favorite business book in the world. I still read that book. And I'm scurry. Like, I like to move around. And businesses change a lot. And I tell you, PIMCO, we change a lot. The org structure change, the way we do business change, our product lineup change. And so that's the other thing to look at. How often do your company change? What's the turnover? Are you being given more and more work, but not being compensated and not being rewarded? Those are those things that you start looking at and say, do I still want to be at this firm? But Who Moved My Cheese has been my little pocketbook that I take the book out and I read. And I'm like, who am I today? When I'm making these decisions, am I scurrying or am I just complacent? So you need to come up with what your career looks like, where do you want to be 5 years from now, 7 years from now, then 10 years. Those are my incremental. I do 2, 5, 7, 10. And at those pivotal point in your career, you look at it and say, am I where I want to be? Then you think about if you want to switch roles. I would then say, if you've gotten a promotion, most recruiters will say, once you get a promotion, that's when you move jobs. I'm like, well, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe once you get that promotion, you reset your time clock at work and say, now I'll look at my job 2 years from now, because now I've gotten that promotion. I'm doing, different type of work. I'll reassess then. So I think I provided responses based on starting out your career, in the middle of a career, and if you're at that point where you want a big change. So hopefully I answered that question.
That was great. Thank you, guys. And I have heard that book mentioned for years and never read it. So I think I'm going to jump on Amazon and get that myself.
Yeah, it's a little book. It's kind of cute. I like it.
Okay. Well, we are about out of time, but there is one other question that we're going to ask here. And Carly wants to know, how did you know that diverting from the traditional public accounting path was what you wanted from your career? How did you find out what other careers were available to you based on your skill set?
Yeah, I took a chance. I took a risk. Don't be me. I feel like sometimes luck is a part of it, but I didn't do well in my interviews for audit firms. I don't know if I just wasn't feeling going to an audit firm, or I don't know what it was, but I didn't do as well. But I think I forgot to mention something else. So while I was at Florida State, I was in Inroads and I did a summer internship. I should have said that. And I interned at Office Depot Corporate. It's in Florida, Delray Beach, or it's in Florida, South Florida. And so I worked on the merchant side of the business, and it was not the traditional audit side. So I, at that point, knew that there are other jobs out there besides going to an audit firm for a person that's getting a bachelor's in accounting. So because I got that experience and I did that internship, because in Inroads, we had to lock in an internship, I think, for like 2-3 summers, I was able to get some experience and talk to people within that industry. What I did realize that I didn't want to be a merchant. I didn't want to be in that industry. I took my minor in finance. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Money. I want to learn how to invest people's money and my own money. So I would say, if all of you have the opportunity to get a summer internship or a mid-year internship, however those programs are set up now, take that opportunity, do an internship, and see whether or not that is the industry or that is the area you want to focus on in your career. And so I did realize that I didn't really want that traditional audit role. And then like I mentioned earlier, people were telling me, it's a lot of work, you work very long hours, and it was just not appealing to me. But one thing I realized in my career is that I work more hours than most auditors. So if that was my reason why, I end up working longer than them, and they audit my books and records. And so my educational background has been helpful to work with auditors, but I work more hours than them. So there you have it. So hopefully that answered the question.
Well, thank you so much. As I mentioned, we are at our time here, and we want to respect your time, but we appreciate having you here with us. This has been fantastic. I know several students have expressed how happy they were and how much they appreciated it as well. So thank you again. And we look forward to having you with us again in the future.
Oh my gosh, please invite me back. I enjoy. Sure. I can't believe the hour went by so fast. I really appreciate everyone's time. Yes, once I log off here, I'm going back to the day job. But I am on LinkedIn, and Chelsea, Marissa, if there's anything else I can do for College of Business, please reach out. Thank you guys for the feedback. Have an excellent day. Enjoy college. Enjoy the College of Business. Go Knowles.
Go Knowles. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Colleen.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.